So you have decided to use Cloud Firestore as the database of your Flutter app, right? Now let me show you how to perform the different operations on a Cloud Firestore database. So using an example of a shopping list app, I'm going to show you how to add data to a Firestore database, how to read data, how to update data, and how to delete data. Let me show you the database. So we have to go to Firebase console, and here I have a few Firebase projects. I'm going to use this one for this example. This has been created for a shopping list app. So the corresponding Flutter code that I'm going to show you is for a shopping list app. Now if you are not sure about what is a Firebase project, then you might not have created one. But you have to create one and link it to your Flutter project in order to be able to access the different Firebase services like Firebase Authentication, Cloud Firestore, Crashlytics, etc. The Firestore database is a NoSQL database, and it is a little different than the traditional relational databases like MySQL. I'm going to quickly explain how is it different, how data are structured in a Firestore database, but if you are already familiar with this, then you can skip to the next section using the timeline of this video. In a Cloud Firestore database, the data are stored in form of a collection of documents where the documents represent the individual entries or records that needs to be stored. These documents contain the actual data that representing the individual items. If you are familiar with the relational databases, then imagine you have a table of shopping items. So each entry of the table represents one item of the shopping list. The table has different columns for the different properties of a shopping item. For example, the name, the quantity, and other value like the status, whether it has been purchased or not. In a similar way, in Firestore, we have to store the individual records inside a collection, and these individual entries of a collection are called documents. These documents contain the actual data to be stored in form of key value pairs. Now here is the biggest difference between these two types of databases. In a relational database like MySQL, we have to create a table with a predefined schema. So we have to create a table, and these tables should have a specific number of columns with some specific names. And if a particular entry of the table does not have the value corresponding to a particular column, then we either have to keep it null or we have to add some default value there. But the structure will be same for all of the entries of the table. This is a little different in a NoSQL database like Firestore. So here in one particular document we may have 5 key value pairs for 5 fields. In the next we may have only 2 because we don't have the data for the other 3 fields. So in case of a database for a shopping list app, one particular document may have the values for the name of the item, the quantity, and the description of the item. In the next document we may not have the description, and we don't need to add the corresponding field for the document for the description in that document. So in that document we may have only the name and the quantity. So basically there is no predefined schema for the entries of a collection of a Firestore database. Now here in this example we have a collection named shopping list, and inside I have added a few documents, and each of these documents represent the items, the shopping items of our shopping list. So currently we are storing only 2 pieces of information, the name of the item and the quantity of the item. Now in a new database you won't have any of this data. You even won't have a collection. So here I have already created a collection and added a few data for the purpose of demonstration. Now I am going to show you how to add a new document to this collection from a Flutter app. Now let's try adding a new item to this collection shopping list. The data that you want to store may come from various sources, but in this example of a shopping list app, I have a form to add a new item. So inside the onPress function of this button, I'll write the code to add the data to Firebase. I have 2 pieces of information here. First is the name of the item and then the quantity of the item. and I'm getting this from this text form fields with help of this text editing controllers. Now, as we are going to add a new item to our collection shopping list, we have to get a reference to our collection. And a reference to a collection is represented by an instance of the class called collection reference, but this class belongs to the package Cloud Firestore. So first we have to install the package Cloud Firestore in our Flutter project. So open the terminal and run this command, flutter pub add Cloud Firestore inside the root directory of your project. Once installed, inside the file where you want to use these classes, you have to import the library cloudfirestore.dart. Now let us come back to this onPress function of this elevated button and let us try to get the reference of our collection. So we have to call the function collection on the instance of the class Firebase Firestore. This class too belongs to the package Cloud Firestore. We have to pass the name of the collection to this function. So this is shopping list in this case, and this will give us an instance of the class collection reference, and we can perform the different operations on our collection using this instance of collection reference. To add a new item to the collection, we have to call a function named add on this instance of collection reference, and we have to pass the data to this function. But we cannot pass the data in this form, the individual variables. We have to pass a map containing the data in key value pairs. So here let us create a map, and we have to add the data in key value pairs. So we are going to add a key named name, and we are going to provide the name of the item as the value, and we are going to add another key value pair with the key quantity and the quantity of the item as the value. Now let us pass this to the function add, save the changes, run the app, and now let us try to add a new item. So let's add values in this text form fields and press this button. And now here on the database, notice that a new document has been added to this collection. And if we click on the document, we can see the values that we have entered. Now once let us take a look at the ID of the newly added document. So this ID has been generated automatically. But sometimes you may want to add your own custom ID for the documents. For example, maybe item 1, item 2 or whatever. So let me show you how to do that, how to add a custom ID for the documents. So inside the onPress function of the button, let us comment out this statement where we are calling the function add, and instead let us call the function doc on this instance of collection reference. To this function doc, you have to pass the ID that you want to add, and then call the function set. And to this function set, you have to pass the data that you want to store, the map. Now save this and let us try to add a new item again. And this time you will notice that a new document has been added, but the ID is the custom ID that we have added. So in this way you can add documents with custom IDs. But for this example, I am going to use the previous approach. So we have learned how to create or add data to a Firestore database. Now let me show you how to read data from the database. So currently we have this collection. Inside this collection we have a few documents representing the items of a shopping list. I'm going to show you how to fetch these items and display them on a list of our Flutter app. Now let me show you the home page of the shopping list app. So here is the home page, and you can see the corresponding code here. So we have a state list widget named item list. From the build function of this widget, we are returning a scaffold with an app bar and a floating action button to load the add item page. And to the body we have added a container for now, but we are going to change this because we are going to display a list of items, right? We are going to fetch the list of items from our collection shopping list, and then we shall display them on the UI on this page. So as we are going to fetch the items of our collection, first of all we have to get the reference of our collection. So here let us create a field of type collection reference, and let us call the function collection on the instance of Firebase Firestore to get the collection reference. We have to pass the name of the collection. So let's pass shopping list to this function collection, and don't forget to import the library Cloud Firestore at the top of this file. Now this class collection reference has a function named get, which returns a feature of type query snapshot. So we shall get an instance of the class query snapshot from the future, and from that instance we can get the list of documents of the collection. And then from those documents we can parse the content and display them on the UI. Now there are different ways to get those data and display them on the UI. I have created a separate video for that. You can watch if you are interested. In this example, in this video, I'm going to use a future builder to get the data from the future and display them on a list. So here let us add an instance of the widget future builder to the property body of the scaffold, and to the constructor of future builder for the parameter item builder we have to pass an implementation of a function which is responsible for creating the layout depending on the value of the future, value that we get from the future. So this function gets two arguments. One is an instance of the build context, and second is an instance of the class async snapshot. We shall get the data inside this instance itself. So this class has a field called data, from which we shall get the actual data that we are looking for. So in this case we shall get an instance of the class query snapshot. And then there is another parameter of this constructor named future, to which we have to pass the future from which we are going to get the data. So in this case we are going to pass the future that we get by calling the function get on this collection reference. We also have to specify the type of data that we are looking for here. So in this case it is going to be query snapshot. Now let us implement the item builder function. So we are going to get all the data from this instance of the class async snapshot. Along with the data we are also going to get other informations like if any error has occurred. So first we are going to check if any error has occurred. So we are going to add an if statement, and we shall check whether snapshot.hasError is true. If it is true, then this means that some error has occurred, and we are going to return an instance of a text widget with the error message to be displayed. So from this function you have to return a widget, and that widget will be added to the body of the scaffold in this case. And then we are going to add another if statement to check whether the data has arrived. We are going to check whether snapshot.hasData is true. So this will be true when the data is ready to be parsed, when the data has already arrived. If hasError is false, which means that no error has occurred, as well as hasData2 is false, which means that the data has not arrived yet, then we are going to display a loader. So we are going to return an instance of the widget circular progress indicator from this function. Let's wrap it by the widget center to display the loader at the center of the page. Now let us focus on this block. So whenever we get the data, whenever the data has arrived, we are going to get the data, we are going to parse it, and we are going to display it in a list, right? So first of all we have to get the data, and as I have mentioned, the value the future provides becomes available at the field called data of the instance snapshot. So in this case, snapshot.data will give us an instance of the class query snapshot. And if we call the function docs on this instance of query snapshot, we shall get a list of query document snapshots. So there is a class called query document snapshot which represents the individual documents of a collection, and we shall get a list of query document snapshot by calling the function docs on this instance of the class query snapshots. And then from the individual instances of the query snapshots we can get the data of the individual documents. Now we are going to display this data on a list on the UI. So we are going to display a list, and the data, the information of the individual items of the list will be parsed from these instances of query document snapshot. But before that we are going to convert this list of query document snapshots to a list of maps. So we are going to convert the individual items, the instances of query document snapshot, to instances of map. So in this case, we are converting it to a map because we have not created any model class. But in your case, or in most of the cases, you may have created a model class to represent the individual items of your list. For example, in this case, we may have a model class named shopping item to represent the shopping items. So in such a case, it makes sense to convert instances of query document snapshots to instances of the class shopping item or the corresponding model class. As we have not created a model class in this example, so I'm going to show you how to convert the items to a map. So we are going to call the function map on this list documents, and to this function map we have to pass an implementation of a function which is responsible for converting the items to the different type, to the type that we want. So in this case, we are going to convert the items, convert the instances of query document snapshot to map, right? So this function gets one argument, which is an instance of the current type. So in this case, this argument E is an instance of query document snapshot, and we have to return an instance of the class to which we want to convert. So here we are going to return a map, and we are going to parse the data from this instance E, and then we are going to add the corresponding values for the different keys of the map, and then we are going to call the function toList. So here we are going to return an instance of map, so we can create a map with this curly brackets, and now here we are going to add the key value pairs. So the first key is name, the name of the item, and we can get the value from this instance of query document snapshot using the key for the corresponding field. So in this case, in our database, we have used name as the key, right, for the name of the item, and then for the quantity we are using quantity as the key. So we have converted the list of query document snapshots to a list of maps, and now we are going to use this list of maps to display the items on the UI. So we are going to return an instance of the list view widget. We are going to use the constructor builder because this is the best option to display a long list of items, long and dynamic list of items. To the constructor builder of the list view, for the parameter item builder, we have to pass an implementation of a function which is responsible for creating the layouts of the individual items. Now from this function, we have to return the widget representing the layout of the individual items of the list. This function gets two arguments. First is the context, and second is an integer index using which we can get the corresponding items from the list. So here in this case, we are going to return an instance of the widget list style because this widget helps us create a layout for the individual items of a list very easily. So this widget has a property called title, to which we can pass a text widget with the text to be displayed as the title or the main text of the individual items. And then there is another property called subtitle, to which we are going to pass another text widget with the text to be this text will be displayed below the main text, and the font will be a little smaller. Now let us get this item, the corresponding item at this index from the list items. For that, let us create a map, and let's get the item from this list items by this index. And now here, to the first text widget that we are passing to the property title, we are going to pass the value of the key name from this map, this item. Similarly, we are going to pass the value of the map of the key quantity from this map to the second text widget. Now there is another parameter of this constructor builder named item count, to which we have to pass the number of items that we are trying to display. So in this case, it is going to be items dot length, because the number of items of our list, right? Now let's save this and let's load our app. Now here you can see the items being displayed on the home page. So we have successfully fetched the items from our database, from our Firestore collection shopping list, and we are displaying them on a list here in our UI. Now I am going to show you how to fetch the content of one particular document by its ID. So to show you how to do that, in this example I am going to create a new page, a new widget for displaying the details of a particular item. So I have already created a new file, item details.dart, and inside I have created a new stateless widget named item details. So we are going to pass the ID of the document from the list page to this widget, and here we are going to fetch the content of the document by its ID. So we have already seen that each of the documents of a collection has an ID. These IDs can be generated automatically, or we can set custom IDs while adding a document, right? And inside the list page, once we fetch the items of a collection, we have the IDs for the corresponding documents. Now we are going to use those. We shall pass them to this widget, item details, and here we shall fetch the content of one particular document by that ID. So first of all, let's implement the onTap function of the list style widget so that we can load this widget on tapping one particular item of the list. The constructor of the list style widget has a parameter named onTap. We have to pass an implementation of a function to this parameter. Inside that function, we can write the code that we want to be executed whenever the corresponding item is tapped. So in this case, whenever the list style representing the layout of individual items is tapped, so basically whenever one item of the list is tapped, we want to load the item details page for that particular item, right? So for that, inside this onTap function, we are going to write the code to load item details page. So here we shall use the navigator to load our item details page. So navigator.off, and we shall pass the context here, and then we shall call the function push. We shall pass an implementation of the material page root widget to this function. We have to pass the implementation of this builder function to the parameter builder of this widget, and here from this function we have to return the widget that we want to load. So let's pass an instance of item details. Now we are going to pass the ID of the corresponding item, the document, to the details page, right? So for that, first of all, let us get the ID. We can get the ID of the document from the instance of query document snapshot. So here we are converting the list of query document snapshots to a list of maps, right? We are converting the individual documents, individual instances of query document snapshots to this map, and here we can add one more key value pair to hold the ID, and we can get the ID from this instance of query document snapshot itself. So e.id will give us the ID of the corresponding document. Now here inside the list style, inside the onTap function, while creating the instance of this widget item details, we are going to pass the value of ID from this map. So we can get the ID using this key, right? Now we are getting this error because we don't have the corresponding field inside this constructor item details. Inside the item details, we have not created a field to hold a value. So we are going to add that. The simplest way is to use the shortcut here. You have to press Alt and Enter, and it will suggest the different options, different actions that you can take. So here it is suggesting add required positional parameters. So let's select this one. And now here inside the item details page, we can see that this item, this parameter has been added to the constructor item details. Now let us create a field to hold it. So here let us create a field of type string. Let's name it item ID, and here instead of this name, let's use this dot item ID. So this, if we use this keyword this dot, then it will initialize this field with the value of the parameter by itself. Now we have to get a reference of our document using this ID, right? So we have to pass this ID to a function called dog, which we can call on an instance of collection reference. So first of all, we have to get the collection reference. On the collection reference, we have to call a function named dog. To that function, we have to pass this ID of the document. So let's do that inside the constructor itself. So let's add a body to the constructor and let us create a field of type document reference. Use the keyword late to indicate that we are going to initialize it soon. We are going to initialize it inside the constructor itself. Now we are getting this error because we have to import the corresponding library, Cloud Firestore. Here inside the constructor, first of all, we have to get the collection reference. So we can get that by getting an instance of Firebase Firestore and then calling collection on it, right? We have to pass the name of the collection, which is shopping list in this example, in this case. And then on this, so this function collection gives us an instance of the class collection reference, right? And we can call a function named doc on it, and to this function doc we have to pass the ID of the document. So in this case we can pass item ID. This will give us an instance of document reference, so we can assign the result to this variable document reference. So now we have the document reference, and now we can perform different operation on it. We can get the content of this document using this reference. So there is a function named get. The way we had a function named get for the collection reference, here too we have a function named get. This function returns a feature of type document snapshot. So we shall get an instance of the class document snapshot from the future. And then from that document snapshot we can get the data of the document. Alright, so let us create a variable of type future to hold the future that this function returns. We shall pass this to the future builder. And let's assign the value returned by the function get to this variable future data. And now from this build function, at this moment we are returning a container, but now we are going to return a scaffold because we are going to create a material design page, right? So let's return a scaffold. Let's add an app bar, and to the body of the scaffold let us add an instance of the widget future builder. We have to specify the type, and this time this will be document snapshot. So here we have the parameter called future. To this we have to pass the future from which we are expecting the data. And then we have the function builder, to which we have to pass an implementation of a function which is responsible for creating the layout depending on the value that we get from the future, right? So this gets a context, an instance of the class build context, and an instance of the class async snapshot. We shall get the data from this instance snapshot. So snapshot.data will give us an instance of document snapshot, as our future is of type document snapshot, and then from that document snapshot we can fetch the data that we are looking for. Again, here we are going to check whether any error has occurred, and then we shall check whether data has arrived, and if there are no errors and the data too has not yet arrived, then we shall display a progress indicator. So again, to check whether error has occurred, we are going to check whether snapshot.hasError is true. If it is true, then we are going to return a text widget with the message to be displayed. Let's also wrap this text widget by the widget center, and then we shall check if we have the data. So we shall check if snapshot.hasData is true. Inside this block we are going to parse, we are going to get the data, we shall parse it, and we shall display it on the UI. And if none of these are true, then we are going to display a progress indicator. So let's return an instance of the widget circular progress indicator, and let us also wrap it by the widget center. Now inside this block, again, snapshot.data will give us an instance of the class which is being provided by the future. So in this case we are going to get an instance of the class document snapshot. Now call the function data on this instance document snapshot and cast it to a map to get the data of the document in form of a map. Now we are going to create the layout. So for that, let us return an instance of the widget column, because we are going to display two text widgets vertically, the name and the quantity of the shopping item. To the list children of this column, first let's add one text widget to display the name, and here we are going to pass the name of the item. We shall get that from this map data. And similarly, let's add another text widget to display the quantity. Now save the changes, load the app, and try to click on one item from this list. And here we are on the details page, and we can see the details of this particular item. So with this, we have learned how to read data from a Cloud Firestore database. We have learned how to get all of the data, all of the documents of a collection, and we have also learned how to fetch the data of one particular document by its ID. Next, I am going to show you how to update the information of a particular document. To learn how to update a particular document of a Firestore collection, we are going to add a new page to our app to allow the user to edit the information of a particular item. So here on the app bar in the details page, we are going to add an edit button. On clicking that edit button, we are going to load a new page with a form to edit the information, the name and quantity of a particular shopping item. And on submitting that form, we shall update the corresponding document in our database. So first, let us add the edit button here on the app bar. So here is the app bar. We are going to add a button on the app bar. For that, we have to use the list called actions, and to this we have to pass the widgets that we want to display on the app bar. In this case, we are going to use the widget icon button. So here is the function on press. We are going to implement it. We shall load the new widget to edit a particular item on clicking this button, and let us display an icon here. So to the parameter icon, we have to pass an instance of the widget called icon, and to this constructor of the widget icon, we have to pass the icon data of an icon. We can get those from this class icons. So icons.edit, this will be a perfect icon here, and here we can see this icon. Now here again, I have already created the widget for the edit item page, and we are displaying a form here. So you will notice that from the build function in the widget tree, we have an instance of the widget form, and we have two text form fields, one for the name and the other for the quantity. And here you will notice that to this text form fields, we are passing the text editing controllers, and here you can notice that we are creating the text editing controllers here inside the init state function, and we are adding the initial values to this text editing controller, so that inside the form we can see the existing values in the text inside the text form fields itself. So from the details page, we have to pass the map containing the current data. So here a field, we have created a field to hold the map containing the current existing information of the particular item, and we are using those to pre-fill the text form fields of our form. And now here inside the onPress function, after validating the form, we are going to write the code to update the corresponding data on our database. All right. And for this, we have to get a reference of our document, the one that we are trying to update. And for that, we have to use the ID of that document, right? So here, let's add one more field to hold the document ID. We shall pass this ID from the details page. Now let's go back to the details page once. And here inside this icon button, we shall use the navigator to load the new widget. So from this builder function, while creating the instance of material page root, we are going to return an instance of our new widget, edit item. And to this constructor of edit item, we have to pass the map containing the data of the shopping item and the document ID. So here we are getting the data as map inside this builder function of the future builder, right? We can make it global. We can take this variable data out of this block so that it becomes accessible to the app bar also. And we are going to pass this map data, which contains the actual data, the existing data of the document, to this constructor edit item. And now we are getting this error because of this type. So here let's specify the type to be string and dynamic. And now the document ID, we have the document ID which is being passed to this constructor. So here we are getting this error in the constructor because we have one field which is not being initialized, and thus we can fix this by adding the keyword late, which indicates that we are going to initialize it soon. So we know that at this moment we have not initialized it, but we are going to initialize it soon, or we can make it null. But in this case, let's add the keyword late here, and here we have this item ID which is being passed to this constructor, and we have this string where we are holding it. Right now let's pass this string item ID to this constructor of the edit item page. Inside that widget, we shall use this ID to get the document reference, and then using that document reference we shall update the corresponding data. Now again, here inside the edit item widget, we are going to write some code inside this onPress function of the elevated button. Inside this button we are going to write the code to save the changes, to update the corresponding document. So first of all, we have to get the reference of our document, and we already know that we have to call the function doc on the collection reference to get an instance of the class document reference. So let's create a variable of type document reference, and we are going to call Firebase Firestore dot instance dot collection to get the collection reference. We also have to pass the name of the collection, and then we shall call the function doc. Here we have to pass the ID of our document. Now here we have a variable named document ID inside our widget class, and this holds the value which is being passed from the details page. Now you may be wondering, why are we using a stateful widget here? So in the previous example for the details page, we have used a stateless widget, but here we are using a stateful widget. In the stateless widget in the details page, we have used a future builder, and we have displayed a progress indicator with the help of that future builder itself inside the builder function, right? But in this example, in this case, we are going to display a progress indicator, a loader, once we press the submit button. So once the user edits the information and presses the submit button, then we are going to display the progress indicator until we get the response from the backend. Alright, and as we are going to make these changes dynamically to our UI, we have to use a stateful widget. And as this variable is inside our widget class, we have to use the widget reference to access it, right? So here we are going to pass widget.documentID. Now we have the reference of our document, and now we can perform the different operations on our document. We are going to call a function named update. And to this function, we have to pass the data that we want to update. We have to pass a map. This map should contain the key value pairs for the data that we want to update. So we have to get those data from the text form fields, right? So let us create the variables, one variable for the name of the item, and we shall get the data from the text editing controller. We have a controller named controller name for the text form field for the name of the item. So controller name.text will give us the text which is being entered to the first text form field. Similarly, we can get the data entered into the second text form field, which is for quantity, with help of this text editing controller named controller quantity. And now we are going to create a map, and we are going to add two key value pairs for the two properties. First key will be name, and the value will be this variable name, and then we shall add the second key value pair. The key will be quantity, and the value will be this variable quantity. So we have the map, we have the document reference, we are calling the update function. Now we have to pass this map to this function update. Now save the changes, and let us also display a progress indicator, a loader. All right, and for that we are going to create a boolean here to indicate whether to display a loader or not. So let's create a boolean. Let's name it show loader. Initialize it to false. And here inside this onPress function, we are going to make it true, and we shall call the setState function to inform the framework about the change, so that the build function gets called again and the progress indicator appears. So call setState. We have to pass a function to this function setState, and here we are going to make show loader true. And at the end of this function, we are going to make it false again to hide the loader. But this will not work at this moment, as this is an asynchronous function. We have to wait for its completion. And for that, we are going to use the keyword await, and async has to be added here. So here, before starting the body of this onPress function, we are using the keyword async, and here while calling this function update, we are using the keyword await. So execution will wait here until update completes, and then only this statement will get executed. Now save the changes. Let's load the app and try to update some data. Now here I have loaded the app, and I have also opened the database. Now let us try to make changes to this particular item. So let's change the quantity and press the submit button, and here we can see that the corresponding value got updated. So this is working, but the loader should have appeared here, but it didn't appear. Let's fix this. I think we forgot to add the loader itself. We have created the boolean to indicate when to display the loader, but we forgot to display the loader itself. So here while adding this elevated button to the widget tree, we are going to check if the value of the boolean show loader is true. If it is true, then instead of this button, we are going to add an instance of the circular progress indicator. If it is false, then only we are going to add this button. Now save the changes, and let's try to make some changes again. Let's press the button, and this time we can see the loader. Now you may be wondering what happens if we don't pass the values for all of the fields of a document. For example, here in our document we have two fields. One is the name and the second is the quantity of the item, and we are passing values for both of these fields. We are creating this map and we are adding two key value pairs for these two fields, right? If we don't pass values for both of the fields, if we pass values for only one, is it going to replace the entire document, or is it going to update only that field for which we are passing a value? And the answer is, it is not going to replace the document. It is going to update the specific field, but you can give it a try. So here let's replace this key value pair for the name. So we are passing only quantity. Now save the changes, and let me open the database, and now let us try to make some changes. Let us also change the title, add some text here, and let's change the quantity. Now press on the button, and here notice that the quantity got updated, but the name is still the same. It did not get updated with the new text. So this is very helpful when you have a large number of items in your document, a large number of fields, and you want to update a few of them. So you only need to pass values for only those fields that you want to update. You don't need to pass the existing values or any other value for the other fields that you don't want to update. But instead of calling the function update, if you call the function set and you pass this map, then this is going to replace the entire document. So give it a try. So here I'm changing this to set instead of calling update. Now we are calling the function set and we are passing the map with one key value pair. the one for the quantity. We are not passing value for the name, right? Now let me open the database and load the app, and this time let's try to save these changes. Let's simply click on this button, submit, and notice that we have lost the field name, right? The entire document got replaced with the map that we have passed to the function set. So this is helpful when you want to replace the entire document with a new map, with new data. All right. Now let me change it back to update, and let's also add the key value pair for the name. And now I am going to show you how to delete a particular document. So again, for deleting a particular item, first we are going to add the delete button on this app bar of the details page. So here currently we have one icon button for the edit icon. Now let's add one more, and let's change the icon to the delete icon. Save the changes, and here the delete button appears, and on clicking this delete button we are going to delete the document of our collection. All right, so let's remove this code, and now here we are going to write the code to delete a particular document by its ID. So in this case we have already got the document reference, right? So to delete a particular document we have to get the reference of our document, and here inside the item details page we have already created the document reference. We have got the collection reference, and then we have called the function doc, and we have passed the ID of the document, which is being passed from the list page to this details page, and then we have got the reference of our document, an instance of the class document reference, and now we can simply call the function named delete on it. So document reference dot delete will delete this particular document. So here we are back in the database page and the app is opened. Now let's open one of the items and click on the delete button, and notice this portion. One item of this list should get deleted, and notice that one item disappeared. Let's try deleting this one. Now if you go back to the list page again, you will notice that the deleted item is still visible on the list. It did not disappear, so we have to manually update this list, or instead of using the future builder, instead of getting the data from the future, we can use the stream, which we can get by calling the function snapshot on the collection reference, and we can use a stream builder to listen to the real-time changes. You can know more about that on a video that I'll put the link in the description, where I am showing you the different ways to get the data from Firestore and displaying them on the UI. So if you use a stream and use the stream builder, then this list will get updated automatically. Now let us try to delete this item. So this one should get deleted, and here the document got deleted. So with this we have learned how to create data, how to read data, how to update data, and how to delete data from a Cloud Firestore database. If this video has helped you, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get connected on the comment section.